This is the FSF PopCast Crossover Connection bonus episode. Hello and welcome to the FSF PopCast. This is a bonus episode that we like to call the Crossover Connection. It's a podcast that we've either worked closely with, or it's a show that we enjoy and we feel that you, our fans and followers, will enjoy as well. This week, we bring you the Scarif Scuttlebut podcast. It's their 100th episode and what they feel are the most influential movies ever. We hope that you enjoy it. And when the episode is over, go follow them not only on your favorite podcast provider, but also on their socials. We'll have those in the links down below, and you guys will be able to give them a follow on social media like Twitter or Instagram. Thanks a lot and enjoy the show.
Hey, this is R2 from After the Weekend, and I just wanted to comment on the 5 most influential films. I have 2 lists, though. The past 100 years, I would say Metropolis, King Kong, and I would say in the past 50 years, Jaws, Star Wars, Superman, Indiana Jones, and Iron. By no means are these definitive lists, but these are all extremely influential films in my honest opinion. Hashtag Red 5 Family.
All right, stick with me here. Yes, I've got another little brain nugget for us here. Yes. Okay. So Star Wars. 3 films in a trilogy. Yes, three trilogies. Yes. Trilogy of trilogies. So I guess what I mean to say is 3 is kind of a big deal for Star Wars, right?
Yes.
And so there's a lot of things that happen in triples.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So triple digits also is significant.
Yes.
And so for the Scarif Scuttlebut podcast, our friend Ro and Shanti and Brad as well, another trio. Look at that. They are celebrating their 100th episode. I don't think Charles can count that high, but they can. They can.
Yeah, that was a real low blow.
I'm shorter than you,
so
I guess
that does work, actually.
Those are the only blows I can. Hey, Rob, shut up. Don't say it. So, in all honesty and in all sincerity, Ro and the crew, we appreciate all you've done for us as a podcast, all you've done for our network, the Red 5 Network, and we congratulate you on breaking the barrier and going to triple digits.
Absolutely. 100 episodes. That's a fantastic mark to hit. Hey, Mark.
So 100% is the best you can get.
And we've gotten the best, not only leader, but friend out of Ro and Chantal and Brad. And we are thankful every day to be part of the Red 5 Network. And we can't say nothing but congratulations on 100 episodes. And we can't wait for the next 2 or 3. The next 100.
200 or 300.
There you go. Thank you.
You know what? I'm gonna tweet this out because I'm so proud of this.
See you on Twitter.
What's Twitter?
Oh,
do we have to tell them who we are? Because we didn't.
Whoops. I'm Charles.
And I'm Pat. And we are Conversations. Oh my gosh. Are we still recording?
Yeah, but we
Perfect.
can stop now.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.
Hello, my friends, and thank you for selecting this, our 100th episode of the Scarif Scuttlebut podcast. We've had quite a ride since our episode 1 from Star Wars Celebration Chicago, but here we are, still at it and still having fun. If this is your first time listening, big thanks for that. We hope you enjoy what we do, and we hope you stick around. For our longtime listeners, a huge thank you. It's you guys that make this podcasting thing still so much fun after 100 episodes. And for our patrons, a heartfelt thank you supporting us as we strive to be the best that we can with your help. Our 100th show was so much fun to record and it almost snuck up on us, but we really do have a treat for you. We had a great collaboration with our friend Andrew from the sciencefictionary.com, and we tackled the almost impossible question to answer: what are the top 5 most influential films of all time? Yikes, what a question. We asked you on Twitter, and we got some great answers as well. We'll take a look at them throughout the show. We'll also be sharing with you some beautiful messages from some of our followers and friends, words of encouragement on our 100th episode. Thank you so much for your voicemails. We appreciate it. And last but not least, stay tuned towards the end as we tell you how you can be entered in our newest giveaway. We teamed up with our t-shirt vendor, the incomparable TeePublic, to give away a couple of t-shirts as a thank you. I'll be back at the end to tell you how to enter, but I'll give you a hint. You gotta be passionate. More on that later. On behalf of Brad, Shanti, and yours truly, let's get this show started. Because as we say around here, it's always sunny on Scarif, and that's the Scuttlebutt.
What's up, Scarif Scuttlebut Podcast? It's Blake from Dork Wars the Podcast, and I want to congratulate you guys on 100 episodes. Ro, Brad, and Shanti, you have an amazing chemistry, great content, and you're more fun to watch than a vac tube full of porgs. You guys have really inspired our show, and I'm sure countless others, and we can't wait to celebrate the next 100 with you. So again, congrats, and just keep putting out the great content. Thanks, guys.
Hey, this is Todd from WSDR Galactic Public Access. Oh my goodness, you made it to 100 episodes. Such a major accomplishment. Congratulations on 3 years as a podcast. That's crazy. But yes, Ro, Chantel, Brad, and even Alex, you guys did such an amazing job getting to 100. Major congratulations. And here is to 100 more. Can't wait to celebrate with you guys at ScarifCon and all the crazies that's going on in the Red 5 Network. Thank you so much for setting that up and being the podfather row and getting that all started. Major congratulations, and looking forward to more collaborations in the future. And that's the Scuttlebutt. Bye!
This is your moment to shine. Go and shine real bright.
Hello, Scarif. This is your very disruptive co-host, Shanti. I just want to wish you and Brad a happy 100th. I know I haven't been here the whole time, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for creating this network, for creating this podcast, and for being stupid enough to ask me to be your co-host. I love you guys very, very, very much. Thank you for essentially saving me from myself and for giving me lots of laughs and a lot of insight into this wonderful world that we call the Nerd Kingdom. I hope that we continue to make more great content and that we continue to make hundreds and hundreds of episodes. Love you guys, and that's the Scuttlebutt.
Hey everyone, this is Ro and Shanti from the Scarif Scuttlebut Podcast. How is everybody? Shanti, how you doing, man?
Good.
Excellent. How was your day?
It could have been better.
It could have been
But
better.
things are looking up, so it's okay.
Excellent. And speaking of things are looking up, today we are recording on March 22nd. It's a Tuesday evening, and we just made an announcement a few hours ago. We have a new member of the Red 5 Network, and someone that is really cool. We hope that you get to enjoy more and more of her as she creates content. But Danny over at Comics and Cosmetics, and she just celebrated 100 subs, and you and Tina were on the show this weekend, which was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was a drunken mess. It was great.
Yeah, it was great. Great to see you guys have fun, and welcome Danny to the Red 5 Network. I hope everyone has warned her already. Seems like she's been warned.
I think she's going to fit in just fine.
Absolutely. And so tonight we have a really great topic. It's kind of a topic that I wanted to get off the ground because of if you guys have been following our friend Andrew over at the Science Fictionary, you know that he's got the series, the Mount Rushmore of so and so. I love that they kind of go deep into the most important things of whatever it is that they're doing. I was talking with a friend, and he was asking me about the most influential movies of all time, and that kind of gave me that idea. So tonight, I really want to get deep into what we thought some of the greatest movies, influential movies of all time, and I guess across all genres. But without further ado, I'd like to say hello and good evening to our friend Andrew from the Science Fictionary Podcast. Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, not much. What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. This is going to be a lot of fun. So whether it is for breathtaking imagery, amazing acting, or spectacular, groundbreaking technology that sets benchmarks, movies have enthralled us and captivated our imaginations. There are certain movies that we think of that change the landscape of not only a genre, but how we look at films to begin with. And Shanti, you and I always talk about the difference between movies and films, which I think is kind of a very fascinating concept. So tonight, we're going to tackle such an exciting topic, the 5 most influential movies of all time. And obviously with big thanks to our followers who were gracious enough to offer their choices. And we're going to get down to the nitty gritty right now. This should be a lot of fun. What do you think of this topic, Shanti?
I am in love with this topic. I'm sure that doesn't shock you. When I saw your tweet, I was like, oh, my mind immediately started working. I was like, okay, which movies? I had started thinking about it. I'm very excited about this topic.
And, it's hard because, I say which of the 5 movies have been the most influential of all time. And I know a lot of people have dropped in a retweet, a lot of movies that are really, they're really up there for whatever reason. There are some common movies that a lot of people kind of mentioned. And I put a long list of movies in our notes tonight. But I wanted to, I just wanted to talk briefly to see where your guys' heads are at. I know I can't remember, Shanti, if you just kind of liked the post, and then I think you said that you were going to save your selections for tonight's show, so that's going to be exciting. But Andrew, I'm hoping that you saw some of the responses from some of our followers, but I'm sure you've got your own selections, and I did see your tweets and your responses on some of your selections. And I'll have to say, I was not surprised knowing what you like and how you talk about certain, fantasy movies. I wasn't surprised at some of your selections, but what do you think?
Oh, I love the concept. I mean, it's, we were in out of town with Marisha, and I saw the tweet and I was like, okay, I got to hold on a minute because I've got to respond to this. And, but it was like all that. I mean, when we did our Pillars series, when we did the Pillars of Sci-Fi and the Pillars of Fantasy in particular, and we also did the Pillars of Action Adventure. And so, I mean, we dug deep. I mean, I did hours and hours of research every week for the duration of those episodes. And each series was like 6 episodes. So, this really, like, there are definitely some things that fall in the most influential category that weren't part of my research. But I do think that, especially in the science fiction and fantasy, the more I thought about it, it's kind of impressive that the number of really influential movies that come out of the science fiction field.
Absolutely.
Because it gives you an opportunity to discuss deep topics without being so on the nose.
Sure. And I think that's the wonderful thing about science fiction. You can kind of slide in these very important themes, and disguise them with fancy spaceships and laser swords, which is always a lot of fun. But Shanti, I want to ask you a question. We did get some really great entries from our followers, but I wanted to ask you how did you think about putting your list together? Was it certain categories? Was it certain, I guess, historical benchmarks when it comes to the movies that you thought of? But what was your process?
When I look at my list and I see that 3 out of the 5 stem from the 20s and the 30s. I have such an appreciation for film, and for me, I'm always going to appreciate where everything kind of started. You know what I mean? So, yes, I love modern movies and things, but I really wanted to kind of, pay my respects in a way when I thought about this list.
Absolutely. And, for whatever reason, these movies have shaped filmmaking. And I think filmmaking in any genre, but, Andrew, you're right. There's a lot that come from the fantasy and science fiction aspect of it because they're so technical. Obviously, movies like Star Wars comes to mind. Where they really changed the landscape of filmmaking and everything behind the scenes in how filmmakers present science fiction and fantasy going forward past 1977. So let's dive in and see what we have on our list. So there's a couple of movies that like I said, some of our followers have posted that I put on the list, but you've got movies like Schindler's List and The Matrix, Wizard of Oz, going back in time a little bit. We mentioned Star Wars. You've got Planet of the Apes. So some of these movies, for some reason or another, really tapped the imagination of folks that submitted them. And I want to get down and see if we can answer why some of these folks picked these movies. Some of them I can definitely see. It's plain as day. But some of the other ones, we might need to do some good thinking about why these folks picked them. I want to get to Shanti's list because it's interesting to me that she went back in time, because I always tease you that you were a fetus in the 80s. So I have I'm going to be really surprised at some of the stuff that you picked. But let's go to the bottom of your list and see what you picked.
Okay, so you want me to start from 5?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm glad because if anything, this movie influenced a ton, which is the original Jazz Singer, 1927. And the reason for that being is because it is the first movie with audible words, a talkie, essentially. It was the first time that anyone actually heard a person speak on film. And so while maybe it didn't influence a genre, it influenced the entire film industry. I mean, now moving pictures, everything is so different. It's not just movement and music and that's it. And not only that, but you could say it's the first musical essentially. So with that, I mean, it did influence, I guess, the genre of music. I mean, musicals were a huge deal for a long time, for a while there. So that's why I chose that one.
Yeah, imagine going to the movie house, as they were called back in the day, and movies were just moving pictures. There was no soundtrack coming from the movie. There was a guy in a pit and a piano, playing some music that went along with some of the action on there, and black and white images moving pretty fast, played back at always seems like it's double the speed. I'm not sure if we're watching the actual speed of the film, but it's always interesting, getting back to the historical aspects of movies. You had this film from, like you said, sound syncing to the visuals on screen. That's a good one. What do you think of that one, Andrew?
That's a really good one, and I had not thought. I mean, like, musicals really are not my kind of forte, but it's a good one. I mean, and I appreciate the going back. I mean, that's really what when we did the Pillars series, it was about going back and trying to find kind of the one that influenced things that came after it. And so often you would find one later and you'd go, but no, you still have to go a little further back. And so, it's a great choice.
So I'm going to chuck this one out to kind of like a technical aspect. We have sound. So there is one little check mark there for the technical aspect of movies, which I think, there's going to be a lot of that here. I'm not going to force us to narrow it down to 5 because I really do want to talk about a lot of the films that were submitted and some of the films that we are talking about. Andrew, what is on the bottom of your list?
Let's see. I mean, I guess for starters, I could throw something out there like The Wizard of Oz.
Over the rainbow, way up high.
You know, it's a big one. It's it sort of falls kind of in that musical genre, but it's so the fantasy genre. It's kind of like the science fiction genre, and even comic books, where for many years they weren't taken seriously. And I would argue that even after the Wizard of Oz, that science fiction came into its own as a something that was not just for kids earlier on than some other genres, like comics were still kind of for kids, and even fantasy movies. But Wizard of Oz didn't do that. Wizard of Oz was one of the earliest movies to overcome that. And that on top of just the things that they did for cinematography. There are technically color movies that precede it, but it's because of they went so big and did it on a grander scale than anybody had ever done it. It's widely regarded as the first color film. But it did something that it became the benchmark, and that's kind of the way I looked at mine, was historical benchmarks. And it is the benchmark for fantasy filmmaking until Lord of the Rings.
Sure. Absolutely. And was that the first? I'm not sure if that was the first
Gone
film
with the Wind.
that used the Technicolor aspect.
It was Gone
Or
with the Wind.
Was Gone with the Wind was Technicolor.
Yes, that was the first
Okay.
Technicolor film.
But yeah, like Wizard of Oz, and they did something very ingenious too. You know, they started out in black and white, and then in the middle of the movie, didn't they?
Also incorrect.
Really?
Yes. So the original Wizard of Oz, the opening was filmed in sepia tone.
Okay.
And then it transfers into color. But for some reason, when they finally broadcast it on TV, some stations, for whatever reason, I guess because the way the sepia maybe couldn't translate well, it was actually turned into black and white.
Oh.
And then now that's why my memories of the Wizard of Oz are a little warped. And
Sure.
I was actually going through some home videos last year, and I actually came across a recording of the Wizard of Oz that my grandparents must have done for my sister and I back in the 90s. And I couldn't believe it when I saw the black and white, because I was like, I haven't seen the black and white opening since I was a kid. But
Oh, wow.
technically, it was sepia tone first.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Oh, that's pretty cool. So yeah, Wizard of Oz. Andrew, besides you, we had Used and Abused podcast talk about the Wizard of Oz, and our friend 1000th Ghost also mentioned Wizard of Oz. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of historical significance to that film, which is really cool. And obviously, Wizard of Oz is a favorite among fans and moviegoers as well, in whatever genre. I also want to go back in time a little bit myself and go ahead and pick 1920s. I think it was 1922 Nosferatu. Which was when I was a kid. I don't know where I saw this. It was Chicago has a kind of a creature feature Friday night, movie presentation show called The Son of Svengoolie, and I might have seen it on there after I was supposed to be in bed as a kid. But that black and white image of that vampire with the big head and the ears and the big nails really freaked the crap out of me as a kid. And it's such a striking image. And I guess it's the earliest existing vampire film, and gave us vampires that were killed by sunlight. So narratively speaking, it seems like that one kind of set the benchmark for vampire movies, yet to come. I would almost venture to say that vampire movies are almost in their own genre. I know a lot of people kind of clump them into horror. But vampires really have their own lore when it comes to film. Obviously started as early as Nosferatu. We've got everything from, big-headed vampires to sparkly vampires and beyond. So Kudos
Oh.
to Nosferatu. Getting back to the notes, are there any other movies that we might want to kind of slip in there that might be a little influential? Now that we're on this 1920s kick,
I mean,
working back in time.
Metropolis is actually on my list, and I see it on this list too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
That's on there.
and everybody will mention Metropolis as far as influencing certain characters in our beloved space franchise. You've got the droid of Metropolis, which very closely resembles C-3PO, especially in the Ralph McQuarrie previs paintings. They're like cousins. It's really
I think
cool.
as much as anything, as far as its impact on Star Wars, it was a heavy touchstone for Ralph McQuarrie.
Absolutely. There's another one that one of our followers, Darth Hound, suggested, which I didn't do any research over, but it's a movie from 1920 called, and Andrew, I don't know if you've heard of this, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, influenced the styles of filmmakers like David Lynch and Tim Burton. So that is interesting. He did post a picture, a still of the movie. So Nosferatu, Metropolis, we've got the Jazz Singer, Wizard of Oz. Let's skip ahead if you want. Shanti, what is next on your list?
Star Wars.
Of course.
The original, 1977.
Talk about influential. I mean, and then talk about our other technical, our other checklist, ILM, the technical aspect. We can obviously do an entire show or create an entire podcast based on Star Wars technical achievements, and they've won awards, every year, time and time again. A lot of movies have borrowed the technology that was created by the folks at ILM. You've got John Dykstra, Dennis Murin, everything from, motion camera technology to stop motion and, modern 3D animation with Jurassic Park. So Star Wars, I think, is the birthplace of much of modern filmmaking technology, and you cannot overstate the contribution that Star Wars has had in modern cinema, especially modern genre cinema. Wouldn't you say that's true, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the amount of technology that was created just to make that movie happen, and then everything that preceded it as they just continued to grow that machine. But that's the thing. It's important cinematically. It's important musically. It's important just for science fiction and making science fiction more mainstream.
Yep.
It's the beginning of science fiction not just being for the nerd, right? It brings it to a wider audience, and no movie, I would argue that no movie in existence has had the pop culture impact of Star Wars. So even outside of what it did on screen, its impact in the culture is immeasurable.
Yeah. And that's why I have it here as sci-fi fantasy is one of the things that I wrote in my notes, is that it really did make a sci-fi fantasy genre, and I agree 100% with Andrew. That is one of the reasons why I love Star Wars. It's not sci-fi like that. Star Trek seems to only appeal to a certain group of people. Star Wars seems to really branch out and reach pretty much everyone. I mean, everyone went to go see Star Wars. Everyone.
Well,
it didn't matter.
It's a high fantasy story wrapped in a sci-fi packaging.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrew, you said something that's very interesting that has always been very interesting to me. And it's one of the reasons, again, like I've always said, it's one of the reasons that I really got into loving the franchise and loving this film is, George Lucas hired these guys out of college, most of them. They worked on television commercials. They were innovative. They didn't have any of the technology that was needed to create this film. And I think most of the ILM workers up in San Francisco, when they first got hired and were housed in this abandoned warehouse, they played around for almost a year when George came back and said, "What have we done?" Well, not much, because we're all hippies. But it's to me, it's so fascinating, the innovation of these folks that really created all this stuff. And now, they are, for behind the scenes kind of guys like me. I mean, they're almost like they're godlike in the realm of production. And, I mentioned names like John Dykstra. I just recorded with Nick at Backyard TARDIS, our episode for Battlestar Galactica this week. And as I was doing research, I knew that John Dykstra kind of crossed over into Battlestar Galactica land to lend all the equipment and the shots that were used for the original Battlestar Galactica, but I didn't know how many other ILMers were there. I saw, some of the old other guys that were there, Dennis Murin and Ken Ralston. So it was almost like, they were doing Star Wars, but on the small screen, even before any of the Star Wars streaming shows were even in development. So it's kind of a fascinating little history lesson for me as I was doing the research for that show as well. All right, time for the big thank yous, podcast family, to those of you that support the Scarif Scuttlebut podcast. Team Scarif gives you all a heartfelt thank you, wonderful people who have found it in their hearts to support our show. We're super lucky to have you. Folks like Amanda, Jedi Caligula 89, Joey Rosales, What Up Joey, the Salty Crew at the Salty Nerd Podcast, Alex and Matt. Super fan of many of the Red 5 Network pods, Nicholas Schaefer. Follow him at Backyard TARDIS. What's up, Nick? Our Star Wars Celebration friend Chad at Hyperspace and Holocrons. Jay from Florida. Our other Floridians, Frank at the Garrison level. Big thanks. And looking at you, Steve, from Rogue One Radio. Check out that Red 5 pod for movies, music, TV, and more. And certainly not least, our executor level patrons, 97 Bravo and the Conversions Podcast. And Scott and Kim from the Used and Abused Podcast. Big thank you, Red Fivers. Go give them a follow. And our newest Garrison level patron, Melanie Marquita. Big hugs to you, my friend. Huge respect to all our patrons for your support. And if you want to become more involved in the Scarif Scuttlebutt community and feel like becoming a patron, head over to patreon.com/ScarifScuttlebutt. Remember, we can't have the scuttle without the butt. And don't forget, it's always sunny on Scarif with patrons like you.
Hey, Rose, Shanti, Brad, it's me, Danny, over at Comics and Cosmetics, and I just wanted to say congratulations for making it this long, making it this far. I mean, you've gotten people to listen to you for 100 episodes. That's impressive. I can't even get people to listen to me for 5...
Hello to my friends at Scarif Podcast. Ando Onaka calling to congratulate you on 100 episodes. I must go quickly as I am currently being hunted by Grand Admiral Thrawn. Something about raiding his Imperial armory. I don't know what he's talking about. Ando Onaka, you are surrounded. You will now pay for your insolence. Insolence! We are pirates. We don't even know what that means. Well, congratulations once again.
Any other notables that you guys want to mention from our list in the notes?
I mean, I think there's some really big ones in there. I mean, The Godfather is one that's on my list, and is also I see in the list from the tweets from last week or this past weekend. But I mean, it's one of those. It's certainly not the first mob movie,
right?
But it kind of made a mainstream. And not just that, it is, and this is where I kind of went back to benchmarks. It is the benchmark, and it's been the benchmark since the day it came out, and nothing, and it's still the thing that every mob movie is immediately compared to.
Sure.
For me, on the horror side, there's two that stand out, and one of them is actually on my list. So Psycho and The Exorcist. The Exorcist is the one on my list.
Somewhere between science and superstition, there is another world. The world of darkness.
Yeah, I would have named Psycho, but again, because horror, just like sci-fi, has all these subgenres, Psycho definitely started the more psychological thriller type stuff. That's more, his thing. But the reason why I chose The Exorcist is because it was actually the first horror movie to finally be taken seriously enough for it to be nominated for an Oscar.
I heard,
because, at that point, horror has never been taken seriously, which is really sad considering how it started out. I mean, we did the episode with Andy on the Universal monsters, so it was a respected genre at one point. So, yeah, those are the two horror movies, the ones that stood out for me in that list.
I blame Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, you're right. No, you're 100% correct.
That's too funny. But yeah, Psycho, I remember, I don't know if I was doing, this was actually in college that I was doing research, but I remember reading that the theaters were ordered not to let anyone in late. If you were late, they wouldn't let you in. Once the movie started, that was it. They closed the theater, and you had to watch it, all the way through. Which I think is, I think it's great for many reasons. It's you don't get the distraction, but I think you get the full impact of what you were about to see. And I think actually movie theaters should actually go back to doing that because
I agree. Treat it like a ballet or a theater where they won't let you go in.
But yeah, I mean, Exorcist really set the benchmark for horror. And like you said,
possession type movies.
There are no experts. You probably know as much about possession as most priests. Look, your daughter doesn't say she's a demon. She says she's the devil himself.
I'm telling you that thing upstairs isn't my daughter. Now, I want you to tell me that you know for a fact that there's nothing wrong with my daughter except in her mind. You tell me you know for a fact that an exorcism wouldn't do any good. You tell me that!
You had movies like the Amityville Horror, which is also kind of up there when it comes to, I want to coin the term prestigious horror.
Yes.
But like you said, a lot of times horror is looked upon as kind of schlocky teenage entertainment. You've got Camp Crystal Lake and the teenagers on Friday the 13th. Yeah. But absolutely. The Exorcist and Psycho are two wonderful examples of that.
Yeah. An interesting note on the horror genre, just in general, is that there are some really important horror films that exist from actually the 1890s. But the problem is, just like a lot of early science fiction, they're gone.
Yeah.
They're lost.
Yeah.
You have, one of the only existing movies from that time in sci-fi. You still have bits and pieces of Le Voyage de la Lune, or however it's pronounced. I mean, that's like 1902. It's regarded as the first science fiction movie, and I don't think there's but pieces of it left. Now everybody knows it because it's the image of the moon with the face with the rocket sticking in one of the eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very H.G. Wells, Jules Verne inspired. But yeah, I mean there are at least a dozen or so horror films from the 1890s and the 1900s, like 1900 to 1910, and most of them are lost forever.
I love the human psyche. We love being scared for some reason, don't we?
Sure,
But that would
yeah.
be the genre that, seems to have such an early start date.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that movie, Andrew, and, again, talking about technical benchmarks, I mean, they used a lot of editing techniques and a lot of in-camera techniques to fool the audience into believing, somebody can teleport from one location to another, now sometimes we call them jump cuts, but, back then it was kind of a new thing. You shoot a scene with nobody in it, you stop the camera, you put the people in, you start the camera again, and all of a sudden they popped in. It's like, oh my God, that's magic. How did they do that?
Have you ever seen Hugo? Martin Scorsese?
Yes,
Hugo?
I don't remember it too much though.
It was basically,
yeah,
like a homage to that whole thing, because I think Ben Kingsley is playing that filmmaker. And they show how he made in flashbacks, they show how he made the film. It's really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I do remember that. So who wants to go next on their list? Shanti, what do you got?
All right, so this is my final one. And it's actually not on the main list.
Oh, okay.
And it shouldn't surprise anybody because it's a Disney movie. Snow White.
Before a magic lamp yielded its power, before an enchanted rose cast its spell, before a glass slipper revealed its magic, there was an apple.
A magic wishing apple. A wishing apple? Yes. One bite, and all your dreams have come true.
The one that started it all.
Make a wish.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Snow White. It is the first essentially animated feature film. Everyone thought Walt was crazy. You can't tell a story using animation. It's not going to be taken seriously. Snow White comes out. He put everybody to shame. To the point where the witch was so scary that they actually had to change the upholstery in Radio City Hall because all the kids were peeing themselves.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I didn't know that. Wow.
So, and not only that, but it just influences the entire genre of just animated film. I mean, do you think it would still be taken seriously if all we kept getting were just Mickey Mouse cartoons or just short? You know what I mean?
That's the thing. Mickey Mouse was big, right? Don't get me wrong. Mickey Mouse is big, but this is what built the House of Mouse.
The house, exactly.
Like this shaped the entire future of Disney. Not Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is a great, figurehead kind of for your whole thing. And don't get me wrong, Fantasia is an important film as well. But this is the movie that Disney exists today because of this movie.
Yeah. It got an honorary Oscar. I mean, that animation wasn't a category at the Oscars. I mean, this movie was a big deal. It was huge.
Imagine telling somebody that you can't tell a cohesive story in the genre of animation. It's crazy to think about that now.
Yeah, I can't even fathom that. And Walt said, "Challenge accepted."
Yeah, and getting back to movies that are influential. Obviously, you also have the people behind the scenes. You mentioned Walt Disney, obviously very influential, creative genius. You've got George Lucas. You've got Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, these are, giants in their industry, and, they're obviously well-deserved and attached to the movies that we are talking about. So that's really fantastic. Getting back to the list, I want to also mention, we're going to get into another technical discussion here, but the movie that kind of changed how we see visuals in action movies. Everybody knows what we mean when somebody mentions bullet time.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
What is happening to me?
And that is a phrase that was coined during the production of The Matrix. And The Matrix is a film, again, that was groundbreaking visually and technically. You had that shot where Keanu Reeves kind of, dodges that bullet, doing that little dance with his coat, his trench coat. And, the rest is history. Everybody and their grandmother tried to replicate bullet time to some degree of success or not. But what do you guys think of The Matrix as one of the entries?
There are only a few benchmarks in film that absolutely change the way you look at a movie. Like, you go back, The Wizard of Oz is one of those. And you come forward, Star Wars. There are only a few movies where you get that moment that you got, that audiences got in 1977, where people were walking out of theaters with their minds blown. And so The Wizard of Oz is one of those. Star Wars is probably the next one out there that really just, not that there weren't some, but it's the first just mind-blowing, game-changing thing on the list. And honestly, from Star Wars, you jump forward to the other two that I always mention, because I wasn't alive to see Star Wars in 1977 and have that moment. But I had that moment when I watched Jurassic Park, because, we walked out of those theaters going, what in the hell did we just watch?
Right.
Like, just mind blown. And The Matrix is another one of those films. So usually that would probably be the four I would say. If I had to pick four benchmarks that changed the way you view movies, would be Wizard of Oz, Star Wars, Jurassic Park, and The Matrix.
Matrix was very huge, and like I said, very influential in special effects, action photography, with bullet time. Really cool. And I think a couple of people, chose The Matrix for that specific reason, and we thank you all for doing so. And obviously, Jurassic Park is also on our list. I just, a couple of episodes ago, I talked about Jurassic Park with Mr. Salty himself. Please go check that episode out. It's a lot of fun. But Jurassic Park for sure. The advent of 3D technology and bringing dinosaurs to life. What a wonderful, wonderful movie.
Still looks really good. I think it actually looks better than the newer movies, to tell you the truth.
Well, it was the perfect blending of practical and digital.
Yeah.
It's when you look back, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what's like the Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where they did everything is this big, huge combination of practical and digital. But then when they did The Hobbit, the studio insisted that they go all digital. And it shows.
It does. You're right.
And that because of that, even though the Hobbit movies are newer, the Lord of the Rings movies still look better.
Yeah.
But when we talk Jurassic Park, I think there's a really, really important one from the same director that sets the stage for Jurassic Park to ever be a thing, and it's Jaws. And I think you have to mention Jaws because it's the first blockbuster.
People were afraid to go to the beach that summer. Yeah, but you're right. 76?
Yeah.
76.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on how you feel about going in the water after, but
I've been in the ocean with a shark. And we had to be told by the lifeguard to get out of the water. And honestly, you know what I did? I ran back, got my camera, went right into the shark. Like, I'm being serious when I say I want to go diving with sharks. That is literally a life goal of mine.
Well, something I'll tell all the listeners that might be afraid of sharks, having spent a lot of time out there fishing, if you're in the water, you're never very far from a shark.
I know.
That's not.
It's like I also heard a saying that, you know, you are never less than no, you're never more than 5 feet away from a spider anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Good luck tonight
They
sleeping,
eat the bugs.
Shanti.
No, they eat the bugs. The spiders are okay with me.
I want to get back to Andrew, because I know that your love for Lord of the Rings is unmatched and unparalleled, and I want you to talk a little bit about the importance of Lord of the Rings in history and filmmaking.
I think Lord of the Rings is a really interesting one because it first dominated the literature category. It becomes the book that all fantasy literature is compared to. From the moment it comes out, it becomes this big global phenomenon. It's like the second most sold book after the Bible since it came out. And so everything that has been written is immediately compared back to Tolkien, to the point where we see authors today claiming, getting upset because Tolkien has given too much shelf space that new authors deserve. And it's like, but this is what people still buy. And it's the benchmark that you have to live up to. But there's not a lot of things that have existed in that space, in the literature space, and been that dominant. And then years later, decades later, get translated to film and do the exact same thing to the film category. It's the reason, things like Game of Thrones, they don't exist if not for the success of Lord of the Rings in the theater. Even things that are a little more historical fiction that still kind of fall into the fantasy category, like Vikings, that kind of walk a line in between. Those things don't happen without Lord of the Rings. You have this thing that was the pinnacle of science fiction literature, fantasy literature, and then turns around and becomes the pinnacle of fantasy filmmaking.
I was going to say, I could have sworn Return of the King, it's considered the first fantasy movie to pretty much sweep the Oscars, if my memory serves me correct.
I think so. Fantasy movies and sci-fi movies usually get a bum rap.
Yeah, they do, along with horror.
Mm-hmm. It's like Star Wars always gets a bum rap when it comes to awards, no matter how good they are. And it's kind of like, well, we gave you your awards when you did your first couple of movies. Now move aside is kind of the feeling you get there. But, you can't make anything in the fantasy space on TV or film now that's not immediately compared to Lord of the Rings in the fantasy space. And they're even Amazon is now having a problem where they're trying to make a new series based earlier in Tolkien's writings, and they're being stacked up against an almost impossible to reach goal. Right. And granted, there may be things they could do better. We'll have to see when it comes out, like what they really do and whether they really even try to reach for those heights. But it's just amazing how big of a thing Lord of the Rings is.
I want to ask you guys, we talk about these benchmarks and we talk about the comparisons that new movies are making because of their predecessors. Do you guys think it's healthy to compare or at least to put them side by side, or do you think that filmmakers should probably just keep going forward and tell new stories and tell them in a way that maybe are not as comparable or derivative of what preceded it?
I mean, I just kind of had a discussion like this about I don't want to compare Batman movies anymore. I know that sounds silly, but all of these Batman movies come out at different decades, different times, different directors, different writers, different actors. There's so many different interpretations of this one character. I do find it to be unfair at this point, and you just have to see it as it's just something that's evolving.
Or
And that's why I
product of its time. Yeah.
and that's why I say a lot of my movies on this list are old, because I'm always going to appreciate where things come from. So no, I'm kind of tired of comparing things. I think it just should be more of just an appreciation of what came before, and that's it. Do your own thing.
No, I mean, I think that being able to go back and compare, take something coming out today and go back and filter it through knowledge of older films is important, especially for things like what we do, with our podcasts. But as far as filmmakers, like, sure, you want to draw inspiration, but I think that the real trick and the reason the benchmarks are so far apart, because you have a benchmark, and then for the next 2 decades, everybody's just emulating that. Right. They're setting out to make the next Lord of the Rings or the next Godfather or the next Star Wars. And I mean, Star Wars is the one you really can look at and go, well, everybody's been trying to make the next Star Wars since 1977. Yeah. Right. And it hasn't worked yet, because you're either too on the nose or you stray too far from the formula, trying, I want to see creators also with a knowledge of film, but not necessarily trying to make something that's just a reskinned version of something successful that came before. Quit emulating and create something new. I think that's really a thing that filmmakers should be striving to do is don't just create a replica, create the next benchmark.
Right. That's why I always go back and forth as to whether or not I wonder, should Star Wars have just stopped after Return of the Jedi? And I understand we're always going to watch everything, but every time I watch something new, it kind of like a discussion I just had with certain point of view about Disney movies, all these reboots and live action, conversions and stuff. All it makes me want to do is go home and just watch the original.
Watch the originals.
That's all it does. You're just feeding my nostalgia. And, instead of just hitting the writer's room and really trying to create something completely different, which is another reason why Tim Burton, one of my favorite directors, hasn't been any good. He doesn't do anything original anymore. Instead, he's given us Dumbo and Alice in Wonderland.
Well, it's the same rut M. Night Shyamalan fell into.
Sure.
It's brilliant. When he first started, it was like, this stuff is mind-blowing.
Right.
And now people kind of like to go back and kind of hate on some of his earlier things, but they were really unique in the space. And then he just kind of started just rehashing the same material over and over again.
Right. From a narrative perspective, we haven't really talked about some of the benchmarks narratively. We've got some epic stories that you guys have mentioned. Everybody does the cliche thing, Citizen Kane and Rosebud and all that stuff. But, even a movie like Planet of the Apes kind of set a benchmark for how stories are told, and that twist ending that is so classic in Planet of the Apes. You mentioned M. Night Shyamalan, at the end, Bruce Willis says, "I see dead people." That's almost like, to me, that twist ending in the same vein as Planet of the Apes. You're watching the movie thinking one thing, and all of a sudden at the end, you're like, holy crap. It's mind blowing. Any other movies come to mind from your guys' perspective regarding epic stories and benchmarks?
I mean, I think I've mentioned most of the ones that I definitely wanted to make sure that I mentioned. There are obviously some other really important ones. War of the Worlds was a big important one.
Yeah.
Godzilla is an interesting one, like 1954's Godzilla, because it's a movie about a giant monster destroying a city, but it's also, when you get down to the core of it, a commentary on on ecological disasters.
Sure. Yeah.
And, that's kind of one of the early movies to explore that. Science fiction had done that very, very heavily, even back into the 1800s, but it wasn't often put on screen that way.
Right.
You had Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and then, the works of Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, for sure. And then obviously, science fiction continues to have, these messages that are very, very deep when it comes to theme. Shanti, I want to ask you, because you are really into comedy. And looks like we really don't have a film that might represent a benchmark, influential movie as far as comedy goes.
I saw Airplane on there.
Right. I know a couple of people mentioned Airplane, but any thoughts?
Can I get you something?
It's your mofo butter laying me to the bone, jacking me up. Tight me.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Cuddy say can't hang.
Oh, stewardess, I speak jive.
Oh, good.
He said that he's in great pain and he wants to know if you can help him.
All right, would you tell him to just relax and I'll be back as soon as I can with some medicine.
Just hang loose, blood. She's gonna catch up on the rebound on the med side.
What it is, Big Mama? My mama raised no dummies. I duck a rap.
Cut me some slack, Jack.
Say Cuddy can say only say we say be doing everything.
Chomp don't want to help. Chomp don't get the help.
Say can't hang. Say 7 Up.
Jive ass dude don't got no brains anyhow.
What's up, everybody? I'm Big Lovin', and this is Don Della Snooch. Down here, we got Dragon Buddy, and over there, we got Luna Girl. We're from the Escape Pod.
Somebody told us that it was your 100th episode.
100!
100. Having known something about 100 episodes,
Yes, we know a little bit.
we figured we should say
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Hell yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I'm
Take
gonna
off.
do a sexy number.
With
and
your
then the
pants.
shirt. Oh, I'm sorry.
PG, they get one.
Oh, that's right. You just did a little bit of the belly.
you only get one in a PG.
That's all you get.
Well, congratulations, guys.
Congratulations, everybody.
Great job, guys.
Love you.
Hey everybody, it's Ollie K here on the sunny shores of Scarif, and I'm here to wish you guys a happy 100 episodes. That's right, the Scarif Scuttlebut podcast made it to 100 episodes. So congratulations, Ro, congratulations, Brad, congratulations, Chantel, and even for a short period of time, we had a nice fellow named Imperial Entanglements. Congratulations to all 4 of you guys to make it to 100 episodes. It's a feat that I was hoping that you guys would achieve, and I'm glad that you guys did. So I'm hoping you're here for another 100, 200, 300, 400 episodes. Congratulations, guys, and I can't wait to listen to episode 101. Again, congratulations to the Scarif Scuttlebut podcast, 100 episodes in. Way to go, guys.
I mean, you have movies from Mel Brooks that are out there.
Yeah. Which kind of
I think I would go back to some of the
thing.
Yeah, I think I would probably go back to some of the Charlie Chaplin stuff.
I was just gonna say, if anything, it is gonna be Chaplin again, going back, Buster Keaton, like that kind of stuff. I mean, that really, influenced comedy. And then, but then you have someone like Peter Sellers, and he did comedy very well, and kind of the slapstick kind of stuff. I mean, the Pink Panther was a huge, huge deal. I mean, it created this whole character, Clouseau. So, I mean, yeah, it's so weird that I didn't really think about comedy.
Yeah. And like I said,
guess because I know more of the modern stuff. I go more from maybe like the screwball stuff from the 50s and 60s and on, but I've never really delved deep into the older comedies like Abbott and Costello and things like that.
Yeah, I know our friend Tina mentioned Airplane. I think the Frank did as well.
I feel like if we were talking about TV, I would be able to talk about it more.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll throw this one out there for Chantel and for Charles. I mean, if you're going to talk about older comedies, you have to talk about Monty Python Search for the Holy
guess,
Grail.
I mean, man, British humor in general has just been a huge influence on comedy. Yeah, you're right, Andrew. Especially to take, again, it becomes this thing of just like History of the World Part 1. If you don't know the subject matter, it's not funny, So Monty Python and the Holy Grail is hilarious because you have to know your history, and that's what makes it funny. So to take it's historical comedy, like that's a weird genre, but They sold it. Yeah. And Monty
Absolutely.
Python in general. All their
Yeah,
movies.
big influences. You know, next time we stumble upon a new comedy, it's most likely a remake of something from the UK.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, these are fantastic entries in our show tonight. Before we wrap up, do we, out of everything that we picked, do we dare to pick the top 5 out of everything that we mentioned? I'm going to tally some things here and see what we come up with.
Is the math too much for you? I know how you are with time.
Let's see here.
Can you add?
There's no adding required.
There's actually one movie while you're adding those up. One that I'm actually shocked was not mentioned. And maybe it's because of the crowd that is responding being mostly sci-fi, you know, a Star Wars crowd. I mean, obviously that was the problem with the Parsec Awards was we were Star Wars top heavy because most of our followers are big Star Wars fans. But the 10 Commandments.
Oh,
it's an incredibly important cinematic piece.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they still, I mean, they cut modern movies regularly where they go back and actually seek out that same camera.
Sure.
To do big sweeping shots with. And, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Rogue One actually go back and use the same lens that was used on some of?
I thought I read that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lens did not exist commercially anymore. They had to go back to Kodak and regrind lens using the same specs.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's like those little things that I find fascinating when filmmakers go out of their way to try to, you know, emulate something that came from the past.
You gotta go to that Academy Museum in LA. I mean, they have one of the original like camera dollies that they used for the Wizard of Oz. I mean, the Wizard of Oz section alone is amazing. The ruby slippers. I cried when I saw the ruby slippers. Oh my goodness. You would love that museum.
I swear, I think I was there. There's a picture of me on a Paramount dolly somewhere.
That's awesome.
I don't think it was that, though. I think that was when I visited the Star Trek set. They had a Paramount equipment on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I've got 5 based on everything that we talked about. I'm going to name them off, and I guess you guys can tell me if any of these are on your list also.
Okay.
And then we can narrow collectively 5. For one, I absolutely know that Star Wars is on everybody's list.
Yep.
So as the kids say, don't even. Andrew, what else do you got?
I mean, I would say of a lot of the ones I named, kind of going outside that genre, The Godfather.
Okay, that's also on my list. Shanti, is it on yours?
The Godfather?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay. I do have Snow White for the reasons that you mentioned, Shanti. Anybody else?
Same.
Okay, perfect. And let's see. This is a toss-up between The Exorcist and The Matrix, of all things, as the number 4.
I'm going with the spewing little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say The Exorcist between those two.
Okay.
Like, you know, The Matrix is really important, but The Exorcist has been really important for a lot longer.
Sure. Absolutely. Good call. All right. So what about the 5th film on our list? We've got 4 good ones that we all agree on. Mm-hmm. The 5th film, I've got something, but Shanti, what do you think?
I want to throw Metropolis in there.
Okay. Andrew, what do you have for your...
You know, I was just sitting here trying to come up with a 5th, but I could certainly agree with Metropolis.
Yeah. I had Wizard of Oz as my 5th.
Yeah,
It's a hard one.
It is. Well, it's covering such a wide variety of genres. It's really hard to narrow it down to 5.
I gotta tell you, when you sent me the email for this and the list, I was really shocked with myself that The Wizard of Oz didn't come to my mind for some reason. Because I love The Wizard of Oz.
Actually, so was I. This was, I think, Josh had named The Wizard of Oz, and some other folks named The Wizard of Oz, and I didn't think of it either. So, but yeah, this is a good list. We've got Star Wars, The Godfather, Snow White, the animated Disney film, The Exorcist, and Metropolis. What do you think? Good list?
I think it's a really solid list.
I do too.
Awesome. Well, dang it, this has been a lot of fun talking this topic with you guys.
I was ready for this topic.
This was a good one. This
was a good
one. Like I said, for one of many reasons, these films have been cemented in the pantheon. I love saying that word because it reminds me of pantaloons for some reason. But in the pantheon of filmmaking,
you would.
But great list, great discussion. You guys brought in some really good movies that I didn't think about, but really good stuff. I want to also thank some of our followers who also submitted some entries on Twitter. I had asked a question a couple of days ago, and you guys delivered. Thank you so much. That is fantastic. But in closing, I just want to make sure that everybody knows where to find you guys. Andrew, where can folks find you?
Yeah, you can find me at crew_podcast. That's CRU_podcast on Twitter. And you can find my shows, the Science Fictionary Podcast and Coruscant Radio Underground, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And Shanti, I know you're all over the place. Like I mentioned, you were with Danny and Tina this weekend. Congratulations to Comics and Cosmetics. If you don't know about her channel, check her out on YouTube. If you want to learn about comics while putting on some eyeliner or some funky little makeup, one day I'm going to follow her direction and see what I can come up with.
Contouring
and I don't know. Yeah. But where can folks find you, Shanti?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and both at Selena Kyle 29. I decided to keep it simple.
Very nice. I was going to say, where can people find you besides your kill room? Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Andrew, thank you for joining Shanti and myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
This was a great topic. And let's see if our followers and people that participated agree with our list. Like I said, we've got Star Wars, Godfather, Snow White, Exorcist, and Metropolis as 5 of our most influential films of all time for one reason or another. If you agree, if you disagree, hit us up on the Twitter and let us know what your list is. It's a pretty comprehensive list. Again, thank you very much for joining us. If you just found our podcast, thank you very much for trying us out. If you are a longtime listener, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. We can be found anywhere you find your other favorite podcasts. We are Scarif Podcast, also on the Red 5 Network. Check us out on the Red 5 Network on Twitter. There's a pinned account. You can check out the rest of our Red 5 family, which Andrew is part of. Thank you so much, Andrew. And Shanti, take us out. I am Ro, and who are you?
I don't know anymore, but that's the Scuttlebutt.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I want to thank everybody who participated and sent over a voicemail wishing us well on 100 episodes. Thank you guys very much. Okay, giveaway time. We teamed up with TeePublic to say thank you. We're giving away a few t-shirts, and this giveaway is valid up to May 1st, just to give everyone enough time to participate. Brad had a really wonderful idea, so listen up. There are big picture things in this world that we cannot change no matter how hard we try, but we can use our own passion to affect immediate change in our local communities. At the Scarif Podcast, our passion is all things nerdy and geeky, and we try to use that passion responsibly. With great power, you know what they say, but we try and inspire positive interactions on the show. We want to know how you use your passion to inspire positive change and help make the world better. Tell us how. Send us a voicemail, email us a short video clip, or DM us on Twitter and let us know how you embrace your passion to make gentle the life of this world. When you do, you'll be automatically entered in the TeePublic giveaway for a free t-shirt. TeePublic will select 2 lucky winners with their choice of Scuttlebut t-shirts, and we will match that total for 4 lucky winners. If you feel like you don't want to enter, please visit our TeePublic shop and pick up a ScarifCon t-shirt. We'll be donating all the proceeds of that t-shirt to the Chicago Food Depository, whose work goes towards providing food to needy Chicago families. We did that last year, and we've already surpassed the amount we donated last year. Big thanks for that. Remember, we all can affect change, and that's the Scuttlebutt. Good luck.
Greetings, listener. Just a reminder that the podcast you just heard is a proud member of the Red 5 Network family. Red5Network.com offers you a great variety of shows you'll be sure to love. So the next time you're itching for quality content, make sure you head over to Red5Network.com. You'll find this podcast along with a whole lot more. All wings report in. It's the Red 5 Network.